At family Easter lunch, my sister handed me cleanup duty and called it what you're good at. She slid the tea towel across the table like it was a baton being passed in a relay race, smiling wide enough for everyone to see. Here, Mia said, voice bright and sing-songy, you can do this. It's what you're good at. The words landed soft but sharp, like a thumb pressed into an old bruise. I felt the heat climb up my neck while the rest of the table kept chewing like nothing happened. Forks scraping plates, someone laughing at Dad's joke, the faint clink of glass as Mum topped up someone's drink. The tea towel sat in front of me, folded neatly, like a dare. I looked down at it and then up at Mia, and she gave me that look she always gives when she's winning. Innocent eyes, the tiniest lift of one eyebrow, like she could blame me for making it weird if I didn't play along. My hand hovered over the towel. I could feel my pulse in my fingertips. I could also feel the familiar urge to just do it, because doing it would keep the peace and keep Easter nice and prevent Mum's tight-lipped stress smile and Dad's booming, irritated, can we not do this today? I could hear the internal script start up automatically. Don't be dramatic. Just wash the dishes. It's not a big deal. Except it was a big deal, not because of the dishes, but because the way Mia said it wasn't about who had the free hands. It was about ranking. It was about reminding everyone where I fit at this table. Useful, quiet, grateful for scraps. Mia's fingers were already reaching for her phone again, like the conversation was over. She didn't even wait for me to answer. She turned to my cousin and started telling a story about her boss, and the table leaned toward her like flowers turning to sun. It wasn't supposed to be this loaded. It was Easter. It was roast lamb and crispy potatoes and those little chocolate eggs Mum insists on hiding around the backyard, even though we're all too old to be running around like kids. It was meant to be normal family chaos. Too many plates, too much food, everyone talking at once. But the thing about my family is that nothing is neutral. There's always this subtle tally running under the surface. Who's doing well? Who's a worry? Who's embarrassing? Who's doing the right thing? I've been the person who helps out for as long as I can remember, and not in the cute, oh, you're so thoughtful way. In the, oh, good, you'll handle it way. The default, the buffer, the one who moves around everyone else so they can stay seated and laughing. And Mia has always been the one who gets to be the interesting one, the one whose stories get asked about, the one whose mess gets framed as she's just stressed, the one who can weaponize a joke and have everyone pretend it's harmless. I arrived at Mum and Dad's house already tense, which I hate admitting because it makes me sound like I'm looking for problems. I pulled into the driveway and sat in my car for a full minute with my hands on the steering wheel, staring at the front door like it might bite. I could hear voices through the open windows, Dad's loud laugh, Mum's bright oh my God, Mia's higher pitch cutting over the rest. The smell hit me as soon as I got out. Roasted meat, sweet carrots, that warm, yeasty scent of dinner rolls. I brought a store-bought pavlova because I didn't have the energy to make one, and I didn't want Mia to make a comment about it being sad. I checked my reflection in the rearview mirror, smoothed down my hair, practiced a neutral face, and walked in. Mum kissed my cheek and immediately said, "You look tired. Not happy Easter. Not high. Just tired." Dad shouted my name from the living room without looking away from the TV. Mia glanced up from her phone, smiled the way you smile at a coworker you don't like, and said, "Oh, you made it," like attendance was optional and my presence was inconvenient. I told myself it was fine. I told myself I was being sensitive. I told myself I'd eat, make polite conversation, help clear up a bit, then go home. I'd already decided that if Mia tried anything, I'd ignore it. I've been practicing ignoring her for years. The problem is, ignoring her never makes it stop. It just teaches everyone else that it's okay. The lunch itself was almost peaceful at first. We ate in the dining room with a good tablecloth Mum keeps for occasions. Dad carved the lamb like he was performing for an audience. Mum kept getting up to fetch things nobody asked for. More gravy, another bowl, extra salt, because Mum can't sit still when she's anxious. Mia held court as usual, telling everyone about her new role at work and how insane her schedule is. I asked my little brother Josh how his apprenticeship was going, and he actually looked relieved to be asked something that wasn't an interrogation. I caught Grandma watching me from the end of the table, her hands folded, her eyes tired but sharp. Grandma doesn't talk much anymore, but she notices everything. Sometimes I feel like she's the only one who does. Then, halfway through the meal, Mom asked me, too loudly, too casually, so, "Any news yet?" And I knew exactly what she meant. Jobs. Money. My life status report. I swallowed a mouthful of potato and forced a smile. "Not yet," I said. "I've got a couple interviews coming up." Mia laughed, quick and light. "Interviews," she echoed, like it was a cute hobby. "Love that for you." Dad chuckled, thinking it was harmless banter. "He's trying," Dad said, voice thick with meat and confidence. "Just takes time." Mia's eyes flicked over me. "Sure," she said, and the word had an edge. It was small. It was nothing you could call out without sounding insane. That's her specialty. Death by 1,000 jokes. I've had a weird year. I don't even know how to explain it without sounding like I'm asking for sympathy, which I'm not. I got laid off from my job about 8 months ago. It wasn't because I was terrible. It was one of those company restructures where they give you a perfunctory meeting and a severance package and tell you it's not personal while your whole routine evaporates. I applied for everything. I took casual work where I could. I moved to a smaller apartment. I stopped buying anything that wasn't necessary. I didn't tell my family how bad the nights got sometimes, how it feels to stare at your bank account and calculate days like you're doing a math problem where the answer is panic. I told Mom a version of it, just enough to explain why I wasn't doing as well as Mia. Big mistake. Anything you tell Mom becomes family information, and anything that becomes family information becomes Mia's material. Mia, for the record, is thriving in the way my parents understand thriving. She has a good job title. She posts about it. She's always busy. She's always exhausted in a way that earns admiration. She's always so responsible, even when she forgets birthdays, even when she shows up late, even when she snaps at people. When Mia's cruel, it's stress. When I react, it's sensitivity. So when lunch ended and everyone leaned back with that heavy, satisfied slump, I already felt like I'd run a marathon while holding my breath. Mom started stacking plates, doing that performative, "oh, I'll just do it" thing while also expecting someone to jump in. Dad went outside to check something. Translation: escape. Josh drifted toward the couch. Grandma stayed seated, hands folded. And Mia picked up her empty plate, walked it over to the kitchen doorway, and then turned back to the table like she was about to announce something important. That's when she handed me the tea towel. "Here," she said, sweet as syrup. "You can do this. It's what you're good at." Clean up duty, like I was being assigned my role in the play. For a second, I almost took it. My fingers even twitched toward it. That's how automatic it is. The reflex to make myself useful before anyone can call me useless. Then I saw Grandma's face. Not judging, not angry, just watching, like she was waiting to see who I would be today. And I thought about every other time Mia had done this. The Christmas she forgot to save me a seat at the table, and I ate on a stool by the counter while she laughed with her boyfriend. The birthday where she joked that I was the family's cautionary tale, and everyone laughed a little too quickly because it was easier than the silence. The time Mom hosted a big dinner party and Mia floated around chatting while I washed dishes for 2 hours straight. And when I finally sat down, Dad said, "Good job. You're handy," like I was a tool he'd been glad to use. My mouth fell dry. I looked at Mia. I looked at Mom, who was hovering in that anxious way she does when she senses tension. I looked at Josh, who was half standing like he wanted to disappear. And I heard my own voice, quiet but steady, say no. It wasn't loud. It wasn't dramatic. It was just no. Mia blinked like she hadn't heard correctly. "What?" she said, still smiling. I said no. I repeated, and my heart hammered because repeating myself and my family is a crime. Mom's eyes widened. "Oh, honey," she started, voice instantly soothing like she was talking to a skittish animal. "Don't." Mia let out a laugh. "Seriously," she said. The sweetness dropped from her face like a mask slipping. "It's dishes." "It's not the dishes," I said, and I could feel my hands shaking slightly under the table. "It's the way you said it." Mia rolled her eyes, turning to Mum like she wanted her audience. "Oh my God," she said. "Here we go." Dad reappeared in the doorway, drawn in by the change in tone like a dog hearing the fridge open. "What's happening?" he asked, already annoyed. Mum forced a laugh. Nothing," she said quickly. "Just, everyone's tired." Mia held up the tea towel like evidence. "I asked him to help, and he's making it a whole thing," she said, voice sharp now. I stared at the tea towel and felt something settle in my chest, heavy and weirdly calm. "Mia," I said, "you didn't ask." She scoffed. "Oh, sorry." "Please, can you do the cleanup like you always do, because you're not doing much else?" She snapped, and then she smiled like she'd landed a punchline. There was a small, ugly silence. Mum flinched. Josh's face went red. Dad's jaw tightened like he was about to bark at me for starting something. Grandma's eyes stayed on Mia, unwavering. My throat burned. I took a slow breath. "Do you hear yourself?" I asked quietly. Mia shrugged. "It's true," she said. "And before you freak out, I'm joking." Dad exhaled hard. "Can we not?" he said, looking at me. "Not at Mia. Of course not. It's Easter. That's the point," I said, and my voice shook now. "It's always a holiday. It's always not today. And somehow I'm always the one doing the work while you all sit and laugh. And Mia gets to be cruel and call a joke." Mum's face crumpled like she was about to cry, which is her weapon whether she means it or not. "I don't want fighting," she whispered. "I don't want fighting either," I said. "I want basic respect." Mia snorted. "Respect," she echoed. "You want respect? Maybe do something respectable." Josh made a small sound, like a protest trying to be born, but he didn't speak. Dad's eyes flicked to him and back, like he was warning him without words. And then Grandma, in her quiet, papery voice, said, "Enough." Everyone froze. Even Mia. Grandma pushed her chair back slowly, her movements deliberate. She stood, one hand on the table for balance. "You," she said, looking directly at Mia, "have a sharp tongue, and you use it like a knife." Mia's face went pale with indignation. "Nana." "No," Grandma said, and her voice wasn't loud, but it carried. "You think it's funny to make someone small because you feel big. That is not funny." Mum's mouth opened. Dad looked stunned. Josh stared at Grandma like he'd never seen her speak like that. Mia laughed. "Dean, do's behaving." "Okay," she said, turning to Dad like he'd fix it. "Are we really going to?" Grandma lifted a hand. "I watched you hand him that towel like you were crowning him the maid," she said. "And I watched you call it what he's good at. You should be ashamed." Mia's eyes flashed with anger and hurt, and I could practically see the gears turning. The way she can't handle being corrected, especially not publicly. "It was a joke," she insisted, voice rising. "He's always so dramatic." Grandma turned her head slightly, still steady. "He's not dramatic," she said. "He's tired." That word, tired, hit me like a wave, because it was true in a way that went deeper than sleep. Tired of swallowing. Tired of smoothing over. Tired of being the designated helper so the family can pretend everything is fine. Dad finally found his voice. "Mum," he said, awkward and defensive, "it's just—" Grandma cut him off with a look that made him shut up mid-sentence. "You taught her it's allowed," Grandma said, nodding toward Mia. "Every time you laugh. Every time you look away. Every time you tell him to calm down instead of telling her to stop." The room felt too bright. Too quiet. I could hear the hum of the fridge, the distant sound of birds outside, Mum's shallow breathing. Mia's face crumpled into a kind of furious disbelief. "So you're all ganging up on me now?" she snapped. "Because he can't wash a dish?" Mum made a small sobbing sound. "Please," she whispered. "Can we just—" "No," Grandma said again, and somehow the second "no" sounded like a door closing. "He will not be your joke." Mia's eyes flicked to me, and for a second I saw something there. Fear, maybe, or the shock of real consequences. Then her face hardened again. She grabbed her phone, shoved it in her pocket, and said, "Whatever. Enjoy your little pity party." She shoved the tea towel onto the table, harder than necessary, and stormed toward the hallway. Dad moved like he was going to follow her, then stopped, caught between roles. Father, peacekeeper, coward. He looked at Mom like she'd tell him what to do. Mom just stood there crying quietly, hands wringing together. Josh finally spoke, voice low. "Mia's been awful," he said, almost like he couldn't believe he was saying it out loud. "For ages." Dad snapped his head toward him. "Don't," Dad warned. Josh's face tightened, but he didn't back down. "Why not?" he asked. "Why is it always him who has to not? Why is she allowed?" Dad's nostrils flared. He looked like he wanted to shout. Then he looked at Grandma, and something in him softened, reluctant and resentful. "I'm not doing this," he muttered, and he walked toward the backyard again like retreating was his only skill. Mum sank into a chair, wiping her face. "I didn't want this," she whispered, like conflict was weather that happened to her. I stood there, heart still hammering, hands still slightly shaking, and I didn't know what to do with the sudden space. The thing I'd feared, saying no, had happened, and I hadn't exploded. The ceiling hadn't fallen. But the room felt rearranged, like furniture moved slightly, and now everyone has to acknowledge it. Grandma sat back down carefully, then looked at me. Her eyes were glossy. "Are you all right?" she asked, and her voice was gentler now. I swallowed hard. "I don't know," I admitted, and it came out rough. She always does that. And everyone, I gestured helplessly. "Everyone just lets her." Grandma nodded once, slow. "I know," she said, "and I'm sorry." Those 3 words nearly undid me. Not because they fixed anything, but because they named it. Because someone older, someone who'd seen the whole family story, was acknowledging that I wasn't imagining it. Mum sniffed loudly. She didn't mean it. Mum said automatically, like she couldn't help defending Mia, even after everything. Grandma's gaze shifted to Mum, sharp again. "She didn't mean it," Grandma said. "And you know she did." Mum flinched like she'd been slapped. She looked at me then, eyes wet, and I saw something complicated there. Guilt, defensiveness, fear. "I just want you both to get along," she whispered. "I want that too," I said quietly. "But getting along can't mean I swallow everything so she stays comfortable." Mum opened her mouth, then shut it. She looked down at the tablecloth like it might give her script. Josh stepped closer to me, awkwardly. "I can do dishes," he offered, and his voice was careful, like he was stepping on a thin ice. "We could just do it together and then go." I almost laughed, not because it was funny, but because it was such a small kindness it felt enormous. "Thanks," I said. We started clearing plates. Mum tried to join in, hovering, offering help in little bursts like she wanted to erase what had happened by being busy. Grandma stayed seated, watching, her expression tired but resolved. The kitchen filled with the sound of running water and clinking dishes. I washed and Josh dried, and for a few minutes it felt like normal siblings, like a version of family I'd wanted for years. Then Mia reappeared in the doorway, eyes red, jaw set. She didn't look at me. She looked at Mum. "I'm leaving," she said flatly. Mum jumped up. "Mia, please." Mia raised a hand. "Don't," she snapped, and her voice cracked slightly. She glanced at Grandma, anger flashing again. "Nice speech, Nana," she said bitterly. "Thanks for ruining Easter." Grandma didn't flinch. "I didn't ruin it," Grandma said. "I stopped you from ruining him." Mia's eyes flicked to me for half a second, and there was something raw there. Then she turned away like looking at me. Too long might make her responsible. She grabbed her bag from the chair and walked out. The front door slammed. The sound echoed through the house, and then everything felt deflated. Mum started crying harder, quietly, like she'd been holding it back. Josh swore under his breath. Dad stayed outside. Grandma stared at the doorway for a long time. I turned off the tap and leaned against the counter, suddenly exhausted. The adrenaline started draining, leaving behind that shaky emptiness you get after a near miss. My hands were pruny from dishwater. The smell of lamb fat and soap clung to my skin. Mum wiped her face and looked at me like I'd caused a car accident. "Why couldn't you just help?" she whispered, voice thick with tears. "Easter here." "I always help," I said. "That's the point." Mum shook her head. "Helpless. You know how she is," she said, like that was a universal law. "And you know how I am too," I said, and my voice was quieter now, not angry, just tired. "I'm the one who keeps showing up anyway." Josh put a hand on my shoulder briefly, quick, awkward, supportive, and then went to sit with Grandma, like he needed her steadiness. I dried my hands on a paper towel and walked into the living room where the half-hidden Easter eggs still sat in a bowl, untouched. The pastel wrappers looked absurdly cheerful. I sat on the edge of the couch and stared at nothing, trying to breathe evenly. Dad came back inside eventually, face tight. "So," he said, as if returning from the yard had erased the last hour. "Everyone happy?" Nobody answered. Dad looked at Mom. Mom looked at the floor. Dad looked at me like he wanted to blame someone, and I was the easiest target. "You could have just done the dishes," he muttered. I didn't even feel angry anymore. Just hollow. "It's never about the dishes," I said. Dad scoffed. "You always make it something," he snapped. Grandma spoke from her chair without looking up. "And you always make it nothing," she said. Dad went quiet. He looked at his mother like he didn't recognize her. Then he muttered something under his breath and walked away, shoulders stiff. I left not long after. There was no dramatic exit. I hugged Grandma carefully. She smelled like lavender lotion and old wool, and she squeezed my hand with more strength than I expected. "Don't let them teach you you're only useful when you're quiet," she whispered. I nodded because if I spoke I would cry. Mom stood at the door, eyes swollen, trying to smile. "Text me when you get home," she said, like we just had an ordinary lunch. I drove back to my apartment with the radio off. The streets were quiet, that post-holiday lull where everyone is inside digesting. My hands still smelled faintly like dish soap. My phone buzzed twice while I drove, but I didn't look. When I got home, I finally checked. A message from Mia. "Congratulations. You got Nana to hate me. Hope it feels good." Then, right after, also Mom's crying. "You happy now?" I stared at the screen until my eyes hurt. My chest tightened with that old reflex to fix it, to send a message that smooths everything over. "I am sorry. I didn't mean it like that. Let's move on." All the phrases that keep the family functioning at my expense. Then a message from Josh. "I'm proud of you. I wanted to say something for ages. Sorry I didn't sooner." And one from Grandma. Just a single line. "Home safe?" I texted Grandma back first. "Yes. Thank you." Then I put my phone down and sat on my kitchen floor because standing felt too hard. I didn't feel victorious. I didn't feel empowered. I felt sad in this deep, quiet way, sad that it took a slammed door and my grandmother finally speaking to make anyone admit what's been happening. Sad that my sister can still frame herself as the victim even after she handed me a tea towel like a leash. Sad that my mom's instinct is to ask me why I couldn't just help instead of asking Mia why she needed to belittle me to feel taller. But under the sadness, there was also this small, stubborn clarity. I'm not good at cleanup. I'm good at surviving in a family that keeps trying to make me smaller. And for once, I didn't shrink.